All right, here are the next couple of chapters. We are on Caitlin, May of 1999. I continued to check the mail every single day for weeks, and then one day I saw an envelope so completely covered with stamps it barely had space for my name and address. Martin was alive. I ripped it open, thrilled, but when I unfolded the actual letter, I gasped. My friend was writing to me on trash. As I read his small, cramped words explaining why he had disappeared, I felt a crazy mix of relieved and confused. He wrote that he had been kicked out of school because he didn't have enough money to pay the fees. This made no sense. Couldn't he switch to a public one? It was illegal in the United States to just not go to school. Wasn't it the same in Zimbabwe? I read the next line. I've been carrying luggage and pouring tea just to make money so my family can eat. The pressure that had been building in my chest left no room to breathe. He was a kid. He should be in school, not working to feed his family. Still, I was so relieved to get his letter that I ran into the house shouting, "Mom, Martin is alive. He's alive." "Thank God," she said, rushing to my side. "Is he okay?" I tried to answer, but the tears that started in the driveway were now washing over my words. "What is it?" she asked, concerned. "He's not going to school," I managed to say before another wave of tears took over. I sunk my head into my mother's soft shoulder. "Mom, he's pouring tea and carrying luggage to help feed his family." Now, she said, rubbing my back. "Martin is a smart boy. He will find a way to get back in school, Caitlin." I tensed up. She had no idea what he was experiencing. I could barely grasp it, and as much as I wanted to believe her, I knew he could not do it on his own. I wanted to help, but how? I did not tell my mom any of these thoughts racing through my head. I did not want a lecture about how I needed to concentrate on my own life first, or about how Zimbabwe was not the United States. I knew that. I had been reading everything I could find online about the country, story after story of poverty, starvation, and disease. It seemed so illogical, so wrong. I had been so worried about Martin for the last 2 months that I had stopped thinking about much else. My grades started slipping as a result. I had the luxury of not being interested in school, while Martin was actually unable to go. It seemed so unfair. "I have to study," I lied. I just wanted to be alone. Upstairs in my room, I pulled all of his letters out of my desk drawer, looking for clues that might help make sense of everything. All these lines I had glossed over before jumped out. High-density suburbs, 10 people per bed, greatly increased my wardrobe. There were so many clues that he was struggling, but I never paid enough attention to figure them out until now. I felt like an idiot. Immediately, I pulled out a piece of stationery. The words gushed out of me. "Dear Martin, thank goodness you are okay. I was so worried. I thought something terrible happened to you. For some reason, I thought you may have drowned. I know that is crazy because Mutare is nowhere near the ocean or even a lake, but still, I had nightmares about it. I have been reading so much about what is happening in Zimbabwe, and so I'm especially glad you are not hurt. But I am so sorry that you are not in school. I don't understand it, and I cannot begin to imagine what that is like. Here in the United States, we have to go to school. It is the law. Everybody goes, regardless of how much money you have. Of course, there are kids who drop out or don't care, but I have never heard of someone who wants to go not being able to." I had so many questions for Martin, like, how can you get to go back to school? What are your parents doing for money? How are you paying to live? And why are you working to buy food for your family? But I didn't want to overwhelm him. What if he did not have any answers? It would just make him feel worse. Instead, I wanted to write something that might give him hope. And I wanted to do something to help, really help. That sparked a thought. I'd just earned $20 from babysitting, which I was planning to spend on silver hoop earrings. Martin needed the money way more than I needed another pair of stupid earrings. $20 couldn't possibly get him back into school, but maybe it could buy food for his family, or at least stamps and stationery so he didn't have to spend his money to correspond with me. I stuffed the bill in the envelope and wrote, I am enclosing some money and hope it helps somehow. Your best friend forever, Caitlin. The next morning, I handed my letter to my mom at breakfast and asked her to mail it that same day. I didn't tell her or Dad that I was sending Martin money. I didn't want them to tell me not to. May 1999, Martin. After I sent the letter to Caitlin, I went to the market every day that week to make as much money as possible. It was the only way I could go back to school. Even if I missed a whole year, I'd catch up. That thought kept me going. The mailman arrived on his bicycle one Saturday as usual. When he shouted, "Martin Gonda!" I ran as fast as I could. I wanted to read Caitlin's note in private and walk to the outskirts of Chisamba Singles. I was so worried about how she would respond to my news. Would she think differently of me? That I was not worthy of her friendship? I hoped not. But I was feeling so bad about my life at that point that I wouldn't have blamed her if she decided to stop our correspondence. I could barely afford to write her letters, and beyond that, I had nothing else to offer. I slid my finger beneath the envelope seal, admiring the high-quality paper she always used. It felt heavy and soft at the same time. When I pulled her letter out, I saw that she had stuck something inside. I thought it was another dollar bill, and my lungs inflated. Then I saw it wasn't $1, but a $20 bill. I felt as if I might lift off the ground, like a hot air balloon. I examined it closely. President Jackson looked so regal. And those words, "In God we trust," that hovered over the White House made me giddy. When my mother and I had taken the dollar to the post office to exchange it, we had walked out with 24 Zim dollars. I did quick math. That meant $20 was worth at least 480 Zim dollars, enough to get me back in school. By now I knew inflation had doubled, which meant the US dollar was even stronger. I had to hold back from shouting in pure joy and relief. Before I ran to find my mother, I read Caitlin's letter to make sure she wasn't upset. I tucked the $20 bill in my pocket. People were stealing the most basic things in Chisamba Singles these days. $20 could get me beaten up and robbed, if not killed. I read Caitlin's friendly letter 3 times, looking for clues that she may be disappointed in me. I could not find one. On the contrary, it was clear that she only wanted to make sure I was okay. She didn't blame or judge me for being poor. Instead, she wrote, "I hope this $20 helps." I knew she was kind, but this generosity was totally unexpected. Caitlin's support felt God-sent. I raced home and found my mother hanging clothes to dry on the wire strung between our house and our neighbor's. "Ma, I must show you something," I said. I didn't want to flash the cash out in the open. "Follow me." Once inside, I handed her the money. "Where did you get this?" she asked. "Caitlin," I said. She studied it closely. "But how can such a young girl afford this?" she asked. "And why would she send it to you?" "Ma, Caitlin has a very big heart," I said. That was the only explanation I could come up with. "Martin, this is enough to get you back in school," she said. "I know," I said, and closed her hand around the bill. "Help me take care of it." She clasped her free hand around mine, sandwiching my fist between her small but strong fingers. Then she placed her forehead on mine and began to ululate, but softly. She broke free to dance in a small circle, and her joyous cries came out as throaty, high-pitched whispers. Like me, she did not want to attract anyone's attention to our good fortune. But also, like me, she couldn't contain herself. "The post office in Sakubwa is closed, but if we go now, we can get to the city bank in time," she said. It usually took over an hour to walk from Chisamba Singles to the center of Mutare, where several banks were located. We made it in less than 40 minutes, as we were practically skipping. Nation was in his last year, Form 4. He wanted to finish up and then focus on a soccer career instead of trying for university. Depending on the rate, the money might help him as well. In the meantime, he was selling used clothes with a friend in the market to make money while not in school. It was better than carrying luggage, but he hoped it was not forever. Excuse me. We arrived at the bank and joined the queue with men in suits and women in skirts and blouses. Everyone wore shoes. My mother was barefoot, and I was wearing cheap flip-flops, my only shoes, which I had repaired with plastic bags fashioned into straps. We stood out among these city sophisticates in their sturdy lace-up shoes or good-looking pumps, but we had reason to be there too. When my mother placed $20 in front of the teller, he looked surprised but didn't say a word as he counted the Zimbabwean bills not once, but 3 times before placing them into an envelope. I was speechless too. It was 700 Zim dollars, as the new rate was 35 Zim dollars for $1. My mother placed the slim brick of cash beneath her skirt, tucked tight against her belly, and I followed her out, looking all around for any sign of trouble. No one ever would have guessed that the 2 of us would be carrying so much money. We were safe. We decided to take the bus home, since it was already mid-afternoon, and we had the money to do so. We arrived at the market, where my mother used 6 Zim dollars to shop for sadza beans and grains. When we passed a chicken stand on our way home, she stopped. "Martin, we have not been able to eat meat on Christmas for so many years," she said. "Let's celebrate today, in honor of Caitlin." My mouth began to water as she picked up a plump chicken from the stacked crates. Everyone in our family knew the good news, but we ate silently, smiling. If a neighbor asked, we said the chicken was a gift from our uncle in Harar. We did not want word to spread through Chisamba Singles that our American friend was sending money in the mail. It would make us a target. Many people were complaining of robberies. Basic necessities like sadza and cooking oil were being stolen. My mother kept the actual money hidden from my father as well. He wanted a real beer to celebrate the news. Not Chabuku, but a glass bottle of Castle. Instead, he ate sadza and chicken and beans with his family. That Sunday was one of the longest days ever. I couldn't wait for Monday morning to march back to school and hand the money directly to the school bursar. When I did, he smiled and said, "Welcome back, Martin." I had missed several months of school, and exams were coming up, so I stayed after school for weeks to copy notes directly from the teacher's textbooks. And then one afternoon, instead of going home, I headed over to the Mutir Teachers College, not far from my school. I knew there was a library on campus and that had electricity, which meant I had light as well as tables to study at. The library closed at 7 p.m., but I quickly discovered a way to sneak back in after the guard made his last rounds. There was a large unlocked window at the back of the building that I could easily slip through. One night I waited for the guard to leave, and then I found a rock to use as a step to hoist my body up and through the window's narrow opening. I landed hands first on the cool linoleum floor. Surrounded by the quiet of books, I felt at peace for the first time in forever. Rather than let myself get lost in that feeling, I cracked open my mathematics textbook, which was like a jolt of caffeine. Seeing the numbers and problems dance before me was like greeting old friends. I was giddy as I dove into my work that night, and many more followed. Within a month, I was back on track.